Hello and welcome to our today's ERN lecture about marketing management in the world of esports. My name is Jana Möglich, and in our today's lecture I would like to give you a few insights into marketing management with a special focus on the esports market, of course. But we only have about 60 minutes to do so it's going to be a really quick and also a low threshold overview for you. Yeah, this is me. I'm Jana Möglich. I'm a German lecturer and researcher according to esports, but also media marketing management. And I'm a PhD student at the European University of Flensburg and the University of Applied Sciences in Kiel. My research focuses on societal potentials and challenges of esports, also including the PhD thesis topic about public esports fundings and its stakeholders. And of course, my profession is media and marketing management. That's why I'm lecturing this lecture today. Our lecture topics, they are based on my course I give at the University of Applied Sciences in Kiel called Marketing Management in Competitive Gaming / Esports. And therefore we are going to talk about a few marketing basics, so we are on the same page according to marketing management, and then we are going to step into the esports industry in general from a marketing perspective, its audience, corporates, / sponsorships, and esports marketing management in the special focus. And our last topic is going to be a few new developments we see in esports nowadays. Yeah, in addition to my content, I also brought some in-depth questions and tasks that you can focus on if you would like to delve deeper into the topic. Let's start with some marketing basics, and I would like you to think about two opening questions to that topic. From your perspective, what is branding? You may have heard of the term, or maybe you are also an expert according to that term. And what is the purpose of branding? Yeah, we could say that branding are like strategies and practices that you use to create a distinct identity for example, companies, but especially products and services in the minds of the customers or consumers that you desire to reach. So it's also about creating and shaping some kind of perceptions about your company, product, or services in the consumer minds. We have some very central branding functions that I would like to focus on, calling the differentiation, awareness, quality, and promotion, which means differentiating a brand or products or services from the competition, of course. When you have a brand or product or service, you are always on the market with certain competitors that you have to consider, and with branding, of course, you want to differentiate from them. When thinking about the customer's minds, it's also about awareness, so generating a certain awareness in their minds according to your kind of brand, your brand identity. When it comes to quality, it's important for you as a marketer to consider a certain degree of quality according to your brand, so your customer satisfaction is assured, so the customer has its certain needs and feels like your product or service has the quality to meet these needs. And of course, according to promotion, which is a very central concept when it comes to branding and also marketing, it's about promoting your brand, product, service. So let's summarize. The main branding functions, they focus on how you as a marketer would like your brand to be perceived by potential customers, which is the brand identity that you create, and how the company or product or service is perceived, so the brand image. And these are very central to questions that are to be considered when it comes to brand management. Let's step a bit further into the terms brand identity and brand image that you see here in this graph. You have on the left hand side the brand or the sender. You may have heard of the sender-receiver model that you recognize here, because on the right hand side you have the customer or the receiver of the certain brand, which means as a brand and the sender you have the brand identity linked to perception goals that you want to achieve, and on the side of the customer you have the brand image that is built up in the customer's mind, so the perception of your certain brand. And in the middle of this graph you see like the brand touch points, so the points or the opportunities or the situations where the brand gets in touch with the customer, or the other way around. When it comes to brand identity, there's a very central marketing principle made up by Jana Möglich in 1992 that you see here. It's called the brand identity prism. So it's focusing on 6 elements when it comes to create a brand identity that are very important to consider. In our next graph you see the details of the brand identity prism, which means like the physique of a brand identity, so physical characteristics such as the logo, for example. Then you have the emotional relationship between the brand and the customer, which also includes, for example, the customer service or how the customer service interacts with the customer. Then you have the reflection, which means as a brand you focus on your certain target group and consider this target group or the customer during your whole processes according to brand identity creation. The personality can really be thought of like some kind of human characteristics or adjectives according to your brand. So you think of your brand as a living being and bring up some, for example, style of writing, tone or attitude you want to be perceived by the customer in connection with your brand. Then you have the cultural aspect in the brand identity prism, which can, for example, be some geographical roots, but it's very central that is focusing on certain values according to your brand. So not only characteristics, but very stable, very fixed values that are identified with your brand. And then you have, in the end, the self-image, which focuses really on the target group and the self-image they have of themselves, and how you can match this self-image with your brand identity. To visualize these like kind of identity elements, I brought this graph, which focuses on like color emotions, as you see in the headline, a color emotion guide. So when you think of the name or the logo of your brand, then you can also see here that some colors are connected to certain adjectives, certain characteristics, maybe also values, and also certain symbols are connected. And that is like a basic that you can work on when you want to build up a brand, especially focusing on the visual elements of a brand connected, as you see here, according to the values or the characteristics with some in-depth brand identity elements. Yeah, so we started with branding basics when it comes to marketing, because usually you are starting with building up, creating a brand in the first place, and then when you have your brand identity, you build up on that identity when it comes to your marketing strategy or your marketing measures. So our next step is to focus on marketing in general really quick, which means like opening questions, in this case, for example, how you would define marketing and which central elements of marketing strategies you may already know. Maybe you have already heard of certain terms or models according to marketing. I would like to give you an opportunity now to think of these. Yeah, in general, you could say that marketing strategy and objectives contribute to the corporate goals, of course. So when you build up your marketing strategy, it should be implemented in your overall company's philosophy, its goals, and its purpose. And as I already mentioned, the marketing strategy builds up on the branding, so it uses the brand identity to achieve specific marketing goals that should be very concrete. So they are going to be helpful and measurable after your marketing activities, for example, certain campaigns and stuff like that. Marketing in general also means like promoting, selling and distributing a product or service. So similar to the branding function, the main branding function. Promotion, you see here, of course, marketing is building up on that principle. And it's also about building up a relationship, which is always central when it comes to the customer journey. So from seeing your brand in the first place to buying a product or a service to building up a long-term relationship with your brand. According to marketing, is brought another principle or a concept which is called the 7 P's of marketing. It was also created by marketing experts, starting with the 5 P's of marketing, and then it was further developed according to the 7 P's of marketing. And there are also some other developments according to that principle, but I think these 7 P's of marketing is a very, very good starting point to understand what kind of marketing mix is relevant when it comes to building up a marketing strategy. So as you see here in this graph, there are 7 P's, 7 terms starting with P that are the elements of the overall or the very central marketing mix, which is starting with the product or service that is to be sold by your company, your brand. Also, price policy is a very central concept that you should focus on. So what kind of price the customer is ready to pay or is prepared to pay for your product or service. Then you have the place or distribution places, so where the product is sold or distributed. Of course, promotion is also a very central part here again, so any promotional activities that you do to sell your product or service. Then you have the people, which could, for example, be the customer service again, so all the people that have any kind of contact, any kind of interaction, which doesn't mean it has to be personal, but can also be via newsletters, for example, with your customer during the whole customer journey. Then you have the physical evidence, which means all visible environments that a brand has that proves its existence, for example, also like packaging and stuff like that. And the last aspect, according to the 7 P's of marketing or the marketing mix, is the process. So all the processes behind the whole customer journey, which means not only the people that they interact with, but also, for example, the buying process or the returning process when it comes to any return issues according to your product or service. Yeah, that should be it according to our marketing knowledge basics. I hope it was a good introduction for you when you don't come from the marketing field, or maybe there were some new information to you when you are also a marketer already or marketing expert. But now, as I promised, we are going to focus on the esports industry from a marketing perspective. To start with that new topic, I would like to show you a video that, from my perspective, really well transports the esports culture in general, so you get a feeling for the culture. Of course, most of you are from the esports community themselves, but just a few impressions, so you can keep them in mind when you think of esports from a marketing perspective, because esports has very central values that you have to consider when you do any marketing activities in esports.
Came from the darkest regions, wrapped in a cloak of light. Minus a focus heights, I'm trying to get my opens right. Throw my doubts aside, I climb the mountainside. And when I reach the peak, the view I see will not be flat. Feel the pressure, but it's relative to the man I measured. No time for hesitation, finally time to step up. And when you're feeling deep in your bones and it's all you're fed up, you're close to the glass ceiling, keep your head up. See your dreams as a goal, that's how I'm seeing mine. Achieve my full potential, let all of the demons pre my shine.
Yes, you saw in the video there have been some impressions according to esports culture, as I promised. And from my perspective, for example, it reflects like the competition part of esports. Also that the community feels like it really is a sport, and also the community part according to esports. So community and competition and sports, which is reflected in that video, and these very central values should be kept in mind when you are working as a marketer in the esports industry. Of course, there's several more, but these are very central principles that you see here in the esports industry, in the esports culture. Another aspect when it comes to the esports industry, of course, is the whole ecosystem around that industry and its stakeholders that you see here. This is one graph I find very helpful when it comes to the esports ecosystem and just its stakeholders. So you see here the different also relationships of the different stakeholders. You see that in the centrum of the whole graph there are the leagues and tournaments, or the tournament organizers. You see the teams and the esports athletes, so the players. But you also see here some other very central stakeholders. Of course, you don't only have like the players and the teams and the leagues and organizers, which are very central, but you also have, for example, corporates that do sponsorships in esports, or investors that fund esports, teams, for example, or esports events, tournaments. You have the regulation part that is also important when it comes to the whole ecosystem, media and broadcasters, and the esports audiences and communities. So the viewers mostly, but a lot of viewers of esports are of course players themselves. Most are players themselves. So you have two different perspectives here in target group. On the one hand the players, and on the other hand also the ones that may also play but also enjoy viewing esports a lot. And in the right bottom corner you also have the game publishers and the game developers, so the ones that hold the rights for the games, which is a very strong stakeholder here, of course with a lot of power when it comes to the esports ecosystem. and has always to be considered during all your marketing activities, of course. As an in-depth task, it could be helpful for you to do a kind of role play according to the esports stakeholders. So put yourself in the perspective of certain very central stakeholders when it comes to building up a certain esports event, for example. So think of being a publisher or a game developer of a certain esports title, be the tournament or league organizer, or the esports audiences and communities. But you can also include the perspective of the other stakeholders, of course, for example, the players themselves, so the esports athletes, the professional players, and think of them as being in their perspective, being in their role, and try to identify with that role and try to think of their interests and arguments when it comes to planning a certain esports event. Let's go on with one very central stakeholder, which is also from a marketing perspective very important, so the audience or the target group that you target with your marketing activities. You can see here, these are, for example, as I said, the teams or the esports athletes, the players, but also the audiences and the communities around all the esports ecosystem. And we already mentioned, on the one hand we have the players, of course, and on the other hand we have the viewers. So just a quick view from a marketing perspective that you have to consider both target groups. Of course, sometimes you have some marketing activities that focus more on the viewers or more on the players, but usually you have to consider these both groups. And there's also a term that is most of the time connected to the esports audience, which means reach the unreachables. So the certain, usually very young target group that is not reached by traditional media, for example, but mostly by the internet or social media, and that really fits to the esports community. Because as you see here, I wrote some examples like Discord or Twitch, which are two social media channels that are very central for the community, where you can reach out for the community, and you have to consider, of course, these very relevant channels when it comes to the esports target group. And on the bottom you also see, of course, the esports community is not only young, but mostly very young. The whole esports industry is very modern oriented. The esports players and viewers, or esports fans in general, are usually very technophilic, digital savvy, and usually they are educated above average also, but also have an above average income that could also be interesting for certain products or services. But usually, as I said, the characteristics young and digital savvy are connected to the esports target group in general. Although as a marketer, of course, you also have to take into consideration that you don't only have like the esports target group or the esports fans. You also have very diverse titles in esports, very diverse genres, game genres that are represented in the esports community, and all game titles, all, for example, also genres have different kind of communities, and also the communities in themselves are very different. So when you focus on a certain title, you also have to take into consideration that certain community, to reach out authentically to that certain community with your marketing activities. Yeah, again, that was a very quick overview of the esports target group. So here's another in-depth task, a textwork that you could consider when you want to learn a bit further about the esports target group. For example, there is the Let's Play study from Deloitte that you can focus on when you want to get to know the target group a bit further. Maybe you also have a certain target group. For example, this study here is focusing on the European esports market, Maybe, for example, you come from Germany, then you, of course, should mostly focus also on the German esports target group. And so there could be this study or any comparable study on esports target group that you could read and internalize the key characteristics that are relevant for you as a marketer according to that certain esports target group. After focusing on the target group of esports or the esports community itself, let's talk about corporates and sponsorships, because sponsorships are a very central concept in esports. Most teams have their revenue streams mostly focusing on sponsorships, like some up to 80 or 90%. So it's a very central principle when it comes to marketing measures in esports that I would like to focus on with you. And as you see here, we have our esports ecosystem graph again, and on the left top corner there you see the corporates that do, for example, sponsorships in esports. And again, to open that new topic, we have a new opening question that is very general. What marketing goals do you think sponsors pursue with sponsorships? Because that, of course, is very important to understand when you want to build up a sponsorship with a partner or with several partners. Then you should take that into consideration when it comes to your marketing activities. Sponsorship goals. Of course, they could be very diverse. For example, focusing on the image of your brand, improving the company's or brand's image among its target group. That could also be focusing on transferring certain image values from the esports industry to your brand, or as it's stated here, it's about the image that your company has in a certain target group. Also, it could be a focus on target group in general, so developing new target groups or trying to evolving your target group when it comes to the esports community. Human resources could be an area also focusing on recruiting new personnel or employees via marketing activities in esports. B2B means business to business, so when you promote your brand in esports, it could also strengthen your B2B contacts to other sponsors, in this case when you focus on sponsorships, and increase your visibility according to that business partners. Awareness is again very central here, so increase your brand awareness among the general public because you widen your public presentation, and so you can increase the awareness of your brand or service or product that you focus on. Yeah, when it comes to sales, of course, you want to increase your sales. That could also be one sponsorship goal that you try to achieve. Or on the responsibility or the societal level, corporate social responsibility could be one area that you focus on. So assuming responsibility in the social sphere that is linked to your company can be increased via esports engagements. You not only have like the B2B area, so business to business, but also business to customer, of course. So, but via any esports engagements or sponsorships in general, you can increase your customer loyalty. And the last aspect is focusing on the competition again. So making up a competitive advantage by engaging in esports to make your brand stand out from the competition. And I brought another in-depth task according to textbook. When it comes to esports sponsoring or esports sponsorships, it's a scientific paper about how sponsors should bring relevant added value to esports. So they did some surveys with esports fans and asked them what kind of sponsorships you would like to see, what kind of content by the sponsors you would like to see in esports. So that could be some impressions, some input for you as a marketer when it comes to setting up sponsorships in esports, and could be very helpful in that case. Now that we have some basics according to marketing knowledge and also the esports industry from a marketing perspective, we can talk about esports marketing or esports marketing management. And there I would also like to start again with an opening question: how a non-endemic corporate or how a corporate can get into esports, which means non-endemic, like a brand, a corporate, a product or service that is not coming from the esports industry but tries to step into the esports industry. And I brought 2 examples that I find very interesting, very helpful according to that topic. Let's start with our first practical example, which focuses on the energy drink producer Red Bull. It is present in esports for a very long time, and it is also present in various ways. So you may look at, for example, their websites and their esports activities in general. That could be a very helpful source of inspiration for you as a marketer or from a marketing perspective. And as you see here, that is the YouTube channel from Red Bull Gaming. And on the top you see certain esports influencers that they cooperate with, and also some of the content they provide on their YouTube channel. But of course it's not limited to that YouTube channel. As I said, they are engaged in esports in various ways and can be looked at on various channels, social media channels, but also their own channels according to website, etc. Our next example is a certain campaign or a certain cooperation between the ESL that you have already seen in the esports culture video. So one of the biggest esports brands in the world, and between the logistics provider DHL, which is also very interesting because of course it's a very non-endemic brand when it comes to esports, but they found a way of a cooperation that feels authentic and that was very successful. So I thought that this is a great practical example for you to focus on when you want to step into esports marketing management. Now you are going to see a video called DHL x ESL Recruitment Teaser. So it's a kind of visual summary of the cooperation between ESL and DHL when it comes to human resource marketing campaigns.
DHL is pioneering a new approach to secure the next generation of high-skilled talent. We have reached a new generation by engaging esports fans on their home turf. With fan engagement, original content, and community-driven campaigns, we have conquered hearts. Gaming is open to everyone, and so is DHL. Our efforts bear significant fruit, and it's now time to double down and reach even more of tomorrow's top digital talent through the sports entertainment choice they call their own. Reach the unreachables.
So as you saw in the video, it is a very interesting business case because also here you see very different ways, very various ways to get to the esports community, also focusing on certain esports titles, but also addressing them as a community as a whole. And it could be very helpful to step a bit further into that case study to understand how they build up their campaigns and how the overall marketing strategy behind it was built up by these 2 companies that cooperated in this kind of partnership. In the video you also saw some brand touchpoints when it comes to the brand and the esports community. That's why I brought up that sender-receiver model again, where in the middle you see the brand touchpoints, where the brand gets in contact with the customer. So let's talk about some examples when it comes to esports brand touchpoints. We have on the one hand, for example, physical advertising, so any materials during the events, for example. Esports events are very central when it comes to marketing measures in esports, in the esports industry. The place clothes is an opportunity, so any logos on the place clothes, for example, from your brand, from your company. The save for products in general, so when it comes to caster booths or the stage where the players are competing, then you can of course place your products there and cooperate with the players or sponsor certain players or teams or the whole event according to your products. Then you have the possibility of branded in-game content, which is, compared to the other measures, of course very expensive, because you have to get to, as we said, the esports publishers, the game developers that hold the rights for the games. And of course, for example, when we talk about skins for characters that are branded with your logo or something similar, then it has to be animated in the first place, so it can be implemented in the game itself. Yes, we already mentioned, according to the sale for products, product placements, but also not at events themselves, but also in social media, in any live streams, because the esports community is very media oriented and most professional players and the teams do live streams in some kind of ways or do any content creation also on YouTube and on other channels that you can use to place your products in, of course. And any other local placements you can think of, for example local screens as the esports events, or any overlay graphics, or in between videos during live streams could be possibilities to place your logo, your brand, your service, your products into this media production itself. Of course, these were only some examples when it comes to brand touch points in the whole esports ecosystem, but there are also several other brand touch points when it comes to customer experience or the customer journey in general. Also before they buy a product or service, when they bought it, or when they buy it and after they bought it. So after we talked about esports marketing, management in general, and some examples, I would like to give you another in-depth question. Can you imagine any challenges for non-endemic brands in esports? Of course, there are a lot of opportunities for you as a marketer, but as in any other industry, there are also challenges that you may have also heard already of, and I would like to talk about them now. Esports fans are a very demanding audience. One of the most important lessons we teach our partners is that they have to connect to esports fans in an authentic way. And I would say that is the highest threshold when it comes to stepping into esports, especially as a non-endemic brand or as a kind of outsider, and you want to try to place your product, your brand, your service into that very demanding, as we said here, audience, the esports community. So all comes back to like some kind of expertise you need to build up in the first place when you want to get to know the esports industry, the esports community, the esports fans, and also focusing on an authentic way to get in touch with that certain target group, that certain community. Also, when it comes to expertise of the industry, you have to consider the industry volatility. So there could be an esports title that is very successful today, but tomorrow there's another title that is more successful. And when you have already implemented some marketing measures or planned some marketing measures in the first title, then it could be very challenging to step into that new title when it's successful or it's popular, because that can change, like as I said, every day. And also on the other hand, you have like the power position of the publishers that of course influence the market in a very strong way. So when it comes to reputation, of course, there are also some critical aspects according to esports or gaming in general that could have a negative impact on your brand perception when it's not taken into consideration when you build up, when you create your marketing activities or your marketing campaigns, for example. And now I brought again to close this topic an in-depth task, which is focusing on analyzing. So according to also practical examples or case studies or business cases when it comes to esports marketing campaigns, I would like you to look for certain successful esports marketing campaigns and try to analyze them from a marketing perspective. Yeah, that was my input according to esports marketing management. So far, we are going to end with some new developments and trends in esports, because as a marketer, of course, and as we already talked about the industry volatility, it's very important for you to stay up to date, to know what is happening on the market and where you can step in with your marketing activities. So some new developments and trends in esports. Let's start with one development that is going on for years and years and years now, but it's becoming very fixed at the moment. It's esports and the Olympic Games. So the discussion of esports, its communities, its titles in connection with the Olympic Games and making esports kind of Olympic. You see here, there has already been announced the Olympic Esports Series. There has already been some events according to the Olympic Games connected to esports, but there is also some kind of backlash nowadays that the Olympic Esports Games are delayed. They should have started this year, but they are going to take place in 2027. So the Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, is preparing its esports activities at the moment, searching for the titles they want to implement, for example, and all the other aspects that have to be taken into consideration when it comes to preparing an Olympic esports series. I also brought up this meme according to the esports titles, because it's not only positively seen in the esports community that esports is becoming Olympic. As you see here, in first esports Olympic events, there have been some titles that are linked to traditional sports but are not very recognized as esports titles. So this is also a very controversial discussion when it comes to esports and the Olympic Games. Another interesting development is the increasing Saudi Arabian engagement in esports. As you see here, that Saudi Arabia is engaging in esports further and further and further. You see, for example, their engagement in the International Esports Federation, but especially also focusing on esports events like the Global Esports Games or the Esports World Cup that has been hosted by Saudi Arabia, and other engagements when it comes to investing in esports, and especially investing in highly competitive esports events, especially on the professional esports level. And to end this last topic, I also brought another in-depth task, our last in-depth task, focusing on pro versus con. So you could investigate these two new developments, like the merger of esports and traditional sports, or the merger of esports and the Olympic Games, and the Saudi Arabian engagement that increases, and focus on its positive and possible negative implications on the esports industry or the esports community in general. But of course, there are also many more new developments in esports, as we said, happening every day. And there are also some trends in esports that you can observe as a marketer. For example, mobile esports, which is increasing, or esports betting, or the connection of esports with the metaverse, with augmented reality and virtual reality. And also the focus on female esports, so when it comes to gender equality in esports, and the phenomenon of co-streaming, and of course also in that field artificial intelligence is very central, which is already used in esports, for example, when it comes to esports performance training. So let's end with our session for today, according to marketing management in the world of esports. Let's do a quick session review. We had certain topics, lecture topics today, starting with the marketing basics, going further to esports industry and several stakeholders of that industry, for example, the audience and corporates. Also talking about sponsorships as a very central marketing concept in esports, and going further to esports marketing management in general, but also new developments in esports that could be interesting for you as a marketer. So our aim was to build up some marketing knowledge in general, but also focusing on, of course, the esports market and esports specifics from a marketing perspective. Yeah, I hope that session was helpful for you when you are only roughly interested in esports marketing management, or when you are an esports marketing manager yourself. Maybe you had some new input for your work, and you could also use the in-depth questions and tasks to think a bit further of our today's lecture topics. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. So let's end with my bibliography. There are also some websites and texts that you could focus on if you want to get a bit deeper into the esports marketing management topic. But of course, you can also reach out to me if you have any questions according to my lecture topics today, also according to my research in general. Bye bye.